Atlantis, Part 1. Plato lights the fuse, grab a drink, get comfy, and let's imagine together. We are in Athens around 360 BCE. In a tiny room, oil lamps flicker and you can hear the rustle of papyrus. Plato is about to read two of his texts. This is not a dry lesson, it is like he is building a stage inside our heads. It feels like a film. The opening scene is so strong it will pull people along for thousands of years. Atlantis. Let's set aside maps and sunken city hunts for a moment. First, meet the storyteller. Plato is a master who writes dialogues to show people thinking. In Timaeus and Critias, he builds three worlds at once. He talks about the order of the universe, he shows how a just city stays on its feet, and he weighs the inner balance of a person, the soul. Then, to test these ideas, he chooses a powerful tale. He imagines a dazzling sea empire, roads echoing with horses, harbors woven with canals, a ringed capital gleaming with red, black, and white stone. Everything looks great. Then, slowly, we watch how this wealth turns into pride. Opposite them stands a slim, measured, steady Athens. The world shakes, waters rise, and the story suddenly goes dark. Plato does not leave this tale hanging in the air. He frames it with respectable names so we will lean in and listen. The lawgiver Solon travels to Sais in Egypt. The priests there say, "Your memory is young, ours is very old." They speak of a great island power beyond the pillars of Heracles. It grew rich, lost its measure, and tried to swallow its neighbors. A very ancient Athens stood in its way and pushed it back. Then came a single day and night of misfortune. Earthquakes and floods struck, the island sank beneath the sea, and muddy shoals were left behind. Solon brings the story back to Athens and tells it around. Generations later, Critias passes it to Socrates, and today we listen as if we were in that room. This matters. It is not a footnote trick. Plato is deliberate. By pointing to old records and priestly archives, he gives the tale weight. He sets a moral story on the stone of history. So what is actually in the texts? In Timaeus, Atlantis reads like a trailer. We hear that 9,000 years before Solon, there was a war between Atlantis and the peoples of the Mediterranean. Many collapsed. Ancient Athens, with its measure and order, stood firm and won. Then nature reset the stage, earthquakes, floods, and a wiped memory. It is short but striking. The real curtain rises in Critias. Poseidon falls in love with Plato on a hill surrounded by rings of sea and land. They have 10 sons, each a king. The eldest, Atlas, gives his name to the island and to the ocean. Now we approach the capital, concentric rings of sea and land linked by bridges. A great canal opens to the outer ocean. The walls are faced with white, red, and black stone quarried nearby. Everywhere flashes a metal that reflects light like fire, orichalcum. The landscape around the city is a design in itself, fields laid out like a perfect grid, irrigation fed by springs, and a plain kept alive by rains gathered from the mountains. Stables, drill grounds, and crowded squares are full of life. The text even mentions elephants in great numbers. The government is another scene. The 10 kings meet at set intervals, judge each other under laws engraved on orichalcum tablets, and sacrifice a bull to Poseidon. It feels both like a senate and a rite, a strong ceremony. Here is the spine of the story. Atlantis is measured at the start. The divine alloy in their souls is thick, and wealth does not rule them. Time passes, and that alloy thins. Excess leaks in. Softness follows. They grow powerful, but pride rises with it. They forget the virtues that made them strong. When they move to swallow their neighbors, they find legendary Athens standing in their path. Athens holds the line and wins. Then nature drops the curtain, tremor, water, silence. Plato leaves the sentence unfinished. There is no final battle scene and no epilogue. What remains is an empty space that fires the imagination for centuries. So is Plato telling history or giving a lesson? Both, but the weight is on the lesson. Plato weaves real places, convincing landscapes, and plausible politics because he is a great stage builder. His main aim, however, is not to draw a map. It is to hold a mirror to a city's soul. For an Athenian who has tasted both victory and collapse, this is a familiar warning: if you forget your virtue, your wealth will rot you from within. Before you chase maps, keep three things in mind. Atlantis is a literary myth born inside Timaeus and Critias. Its job is to test how a city stands under wealth and pressure. Its strongest hook is that it is unfinished. That final silence opens the door to centuries of questions. There is also the date, 9,000 years before Solon. That is roughly 9,600 BCE, when the Ice Age is ending. Archaeology shows complex hunter-gatherers in the Near East and the first steps toward farming, not Bronze Age fleets in the Atlantic. This is why most researchers read 9,000 as mythic DeepTime, a way of saying so old it hurts. More important than the number is the arc the story draws. Here is what I want to leave you with at the end of this part. The rings, the metals, the elephants, and the canals are stage elements. First, Plato shows us abundance disciplined by law. Then he shows how abundance loosens the law. It is gorgeous, tempting, and dangerous. It is very human, which is to say, it is a little bit as dot. If you are ready, in the next part we will watch how this tale walks out of Plato's room and changes costumes across the centuries, whose hands remake it, how it is reborn, and how we can keep our curiosity alive without losing our footing. Part 2. Inch from quiet centuries to viral myth. Plato's lamp goes out, but Atlantis does not jump to center stage. In the ancient world people know the story, yes, but it is not anyone's headline. A few writers mention it and most others shrug. There is no grand search across the Mediterranean for a lost city. In that world the point is not to pin a place on a map. The value is the lesson. For Greek and Roman elites, that is where Atlantis matters. As time moves on, the torch changes hands. The Middle Ages keep Plato but do not care much about Atlantis. With the Renaissance the light shifts tone. Humanists turn back to Greek texts with fresh hunger. Presses multiply the pages. Maps bloom. Curiosity wakes from a long nap, stretches, and starts to walk. In 1665 the Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher draws Atlantis in the Atlantic, a theatrical island between the Old World and the New. Is it scientific? No. Is it influential? Very much so. Give a word a shape and people will not forget that shape. With the Enlightenment the setting changes again. A skeptical voice rises that says myths teach but do not testify. Natural philosophers record earthquakes, floods, and volcanoes. They begin to look for real disasters behind legendary ones. A habit is born that lasts to the present. Solid geology becomes fuel for the imagination. Then the 19th century arrives and everyone's pulse quickens as if after coffee. Steam engines, telegraph wires, museums, empires. The world loves a single grand story that explains everything. Right then Ignatius Donnelly steps onto the stage with Atlantis, the antediluvian world, in 1882. He piles in everything he can find, from linguistics to flood tales to pyramids, and declares Atlantis the parent source of Egypt and the Americas. Scholars roll their eyes, but readers embrace the book. Donnelly rewires popular imagination. Atlantis becomes not only a moral tale but the missing link that ties the world together. While respectable science keeps saying wait a moment, esoteric movements pull the myth onto a different track. Theosophy places Atlantis inside a spiritual prehistory, with root races, psychic change, and karmic disasters. The focus is not geology. The focus is meaning. The stage is set for souls. In less kind hands Atlantis twists into racial fantasies. There is a small but important lesson here for any creator. Choose your adjectives with care. Myths are like passports that anyone can stamp. In the 20th century Atlantis becomes a favorite set in popular culture. Pulp novels, radio serials, comic books, animation, and movies all reuse the same motifs. Domes under the sea. Crystal technology. Tridents and submarines. Lost thrones and noble last survivors. Some versions are charming. Some are propaganda with gills. Meanwhile, serious fields like archaeology, geology, and oceanography raise the bar. Sonar maps the seafloor. Radiocarbon dating nails down timelines. The range of what counts as plausible narrows, yet the second life of Atlantis is not only wild theories and cartoonish characters. It also brings solid questions. Which real disasters might have inspired Plato's set design? Which flood stories travel from culture to culture? And why do prosperous societies fall so quickly in love with dreams of golden ages that end underwater? Why the internet age? The myth is almost turbocharged. Aerial images, LiDAR-style visuals, click-me thumbnails, and captions that feel perfectly placed make it easy to market any ring, ridge, or ruin as the one. Atlantis becomes a mirror not only for cities but also for our information environment. Sensational certainty earns clicks. Careful maybe earns fewer. If you make content, your job is clear. Keep wonder and method in the same frame. So what keeps this myth alive? First, the sweet ambiguity in the source. There is enough to imagine, but not enough to locate. Then the moral clarity. Pride and measure are always on the table. After that, the visual pull. Rings, canals, metals, elephants. Next comes the drama of disaster. Earthquake and flood fit real geology. The authority wrapper helps too. Egyptian priests and Solon give the tale weight. At the unfinished ending, a half-told text sticks in the mind. Finally, every era dresses Atlantis in its own style. Baroque, Victorian, spiritual, science fiction. The same mold takes a new color each time. Remember this as well. Each time the myth changes costume, it shows what that era fears and what it wants. The Renaissance wants order drawn out of chaos. Victorians want a single key for the world's puzzle. Theosophists want a stairway that climbs back to meaning. And us, the people of a hyper-connected and storm-prone age, we want warnings we can feel before the water rises. Keep all of that in mind. Now open the drawer. In part 3 we will take the usual suspects and lay them out fairly, one by one. Part 3 The usual suspects. If you are ready, let's calmly open the map drawer. We will visit, one by one, the regions people have pointed to for years and said, Atlantis was probably here. We will honestly describe each candidate's strengths, and we will clearly state where it falls short. We will ask the same 2 questions every time. Which details does this theory truly explain, and where does it stumble? In the end we will offer a brief assessment and move to the next. Our goal is not to inflame debate, but to keep curiosity alive while we stand on solid ground. Santorini and the Minoans. This proposal is usually told like this. In the Bronze Age the island known as Thera, today's Santorini, was shattered by a massive volcanic eruption. The tsunamis pounded the coasts of Crete. The Minoans, famous for their wealthy palaces, advanced seafaring, and art, suffered a heavy blow. The caldera we see today also looks, from the air, like concentric rings. At first glance this picture stands surprisingly close to Atlantis. Here is its strong side. We have a truly splendid maritime civilization and a great disaster that shakes it all at once. Ash, waves, shock, and a memory trace people could tell for centuries. On top of that, the visual impact of caldera rings easily connects in people's minds to Atlantis's ringed capital. Its weak points are clear. Plato places Atlantis beyond the Pillars of Heracles, that is, outside Gibraltar. Santorini is inside the Aegean. The timeline also does not match. 9,000 years before Solon points to the end of the Ice Age, while the Thera eruption is in the 2nd millennium BCE. In addition, Plato's dramatic confrontation is not between Minoans and Athens, but between Athens and Atlantis. Brief assessment. Santorini is a powerful source of inspiration and a genuine disaster example, but it is not a one-to-one match to the text, Andalusia and Doñana, the world of Tartessos. This approach focuses on the wide Doñana delta in southwestern Spain. In antiquity the area had a deeper estuarine system, and a wealthy culture known as Tartessos lived along the Seville and Cadiz corridor. On satellite images there are signs that may point to ring-like landforms and buried harbor structures. In the west, a flat plain protected by mountains, a layout cut by canals, and a story of metal wealth all align, in a striking way, with the scenery in Plato's text. Here is its strong side. In terms of location we are in the right place. West of Gibraltar, the idea of a broad plain backed by mountains fits the geography. Canals, harbors, and metalworking align with the region's archaeological and historical character. Muddy shoals left by post-flood silting make Plato's phrase shoals of mud sound plausible. Its weak side is that the evidence does not yet carry certainty. Findings so far are suggestive, and the dates appear later than the figures in the story. A clearly defined ringed capital shining with orichalcum has not yet been presented. Brief assessment. One of the most reasonable and balanced candidates on the Atlantic front, yet the right stance for now is a cautious possible. The Azores, the Canary Islands, and Madeira, these candidates are volcanic island arcs in the middle of the ocean, and they create a strong imaginative pull. Coast shaped by waves, hard winds, and storm-traced landscapes easily provide a stage for the idea of a maritime power leaping island to island. The strength is atmosphere. The sense of place is right, nature's own drama is fully present, and deserted island stories always draw interest. The weakness is set by archaeology. There is no concrete evidence of an advanced urban culture from the correct era. No central hub that resembles a ringed capital has been identified. The scale Plato draws strains the physical limits of these islands. Brief assessment. A visual delight and a strong atmosphere, but the concrete evidence is weak. The RichatStructure in the Sahara. The Eye of the Sahara. Richat is a magnificent geological formation in the Mauritanian desert that looks like a giant target. Its concentric rings are striking from satellite images, which is why it is quickly connected to the Atlantis idea. Its strong side is almost purely visual. The rings are compelling at first glance, its weak side is decisive. Richat is a geological dome eroded into rings. It is far from the sea, the period does not fit, and there are no archaeological traces pointing to a great city. Brief assessment. A stunning photo subject, but not archaeologically persuasive. The BlackSea flood scenario. It is debated that the Black Sea may have experienced a significant marine transgression in the early Holocene. In that case, coastal settlements could have been submerged and flood memories passed down through generations. Its strong side is that it shows how disaster narratives can be rooted in real events. It provides a good basis for how flood memory travels across cultures. Its weak side is that it does not match the geography in Plato's text. The scene in question is not the Atlantic approach beyond Gibraltar, and it does not explain a ringed capital. A brief assessment. Valuable for understanding the background of deluge myths, but not Atlantis itself. Doggerland in the North Sea. At the end of the Ice Age there was a broad land bridge between Britain and continental Europe. Rising seas and sudden events swallowed this region, and coasts and settlements slipped underwater. Its strong side is that it conveys, very well, the feeling of a world quietly disappearing. The weight of losing one's land is a real historical experience here. Its weak side is again a mismatch between the text and geography and scale. We are in the wrong sea, the cultural scale does not fit, and we do not approach Plato's idea of a ringed golden city. Brief assessment. A real and sorrowful story, but it does not overlap with Atlantis, the Caribbean and the Americas. The phrase opposite continent in Plato's text has led some researchers to look west. The Caribbean and the Yucatan region, with their pyramids, water engineering, and striking natural formations, stir the imagination. Its strong side is the waterworks and visual drama. The powerful relationship with nature draws the viewer in. Its weak side is the historical mismatch. The world Plato describes unfolds around the Atlantic gateway to the Mediterranean, and he does not covertly narrate a new world empire unknown to the Greeks of his time. Brief assessment. A fertile ground for literary or visual fiction, but weak in fit to the text. A short side note on blended theories. The pattern is now visible. The strongest candidates are those that can cover multiple elements at once. Location, geography, time, and culture together make the picture convincing. The weak candidates cling to a single detail and try to drape it over the whole story. A ring in the sand, a ring of sea and land, or a ring seen from orbit is not enough on its own. A reasonable middle road says this. Plato built a narrative fed by different sources. He had a moral spine he wanted to tell. He used known disaster examples like eruptions and earthquakes. Stories from the western shores, from the once wealthy Tartessos world, were woven into this spine. The authority of Egyptian priests gave weight to the tale. Placing the story in DeepTime lifted it beyond the everyday. The resulting world was real enough to picture, yet distant enough to debate forever. How to present these candidates in your videos. Approach each hypothesis with goodwill and let it present itself in its strongest form first. Then use the same 3 tools for each. What does the evidence actually show? What does it not show? At which point are you interpreting and inferring? Viewers notice and value fairness, especially when the subject is a map point dear to their hearts. Keep your delivery clear and visual. When you talk about Thera, help the audience imagine ash in the air, pumice floating on the sea, and a caldera rim like a broken bowl. When you speak of Doñana, take them flying over marshes, dunes, and a faded estuary mouth. When you cover Richat, state plainly that geology can create perfect rings too. Choose clarity over mockery. Prepare a short, memorable line for each candidate so viewers carry something out of the video. For Thera, say a real disaster, the wrong sea. For Doñana, say the right ocean, hopeful but evidence is still thin. For the Azores and the Canaries, strong atmosphere, weak archaeology. For Richat, beautiful rings, no city. For the BlackSea, inspires deluge myths, wrong location. For Doggerland, a genuine sorrow, but the wrong stage. For the Caribbean, magnificent in its own right, not Plato's text. Why this tour matters, part of Atlantis' enduring appeal comes from here. This story gives us the chance to think like a scientist and to be a good storyteller at the same time. We test claims without killing curiosity, and we keep curiosity alive without crossing the limits of evidence. We say yes to what is solid and keep our distance from what is wishful. Yet we do not extinguish the spark that makes us look to the horizon and imagine. It is good to close this part with a small but strong question for the viewer. Which evidence would truly change your mind? A harbour wall found under Atlantic alluvium. A bronze tablet bearing laws alongside a bull ritual. What kind of find would carry a heart that says maybe over to a mind that says likely? Ask the question and let it hang. In this way, curiosity stays both sincere and honest, and in the next part we will be ready to talk about why this myth keeps being reborn in every era, and how we can tell it rightly and powerfully in our own time. Part 4 Inch Why Atlantis keeps coming back and how to tell it today. Today we're answering two simple questions. Why does Atlantis keep coming back? And how do we tell this story the right way for today's audience? Short answer, Atlantis gives you three things at once. A solvable mystery, a timeless lesson, and vivid images you can see instantly. A ringed city, shining walls, a long canal to the sea. Then the break, it rose, it grew proud, the ground shook, the sea rose, and it vanished. A complete story in one sentence. There's a deeper layer too. Atlantis mirrors the spirit of each era. When we fear collapse, we chase stories of fallen wonders. When we want a shared origin, we reach for a mother civilization. When we feel cut off from meaning, we look for a ladder back up. The same myth changes outfits every decade. Today the picture is clear. On one side, climate reports, retreating shorelines, tougher storms. On the other, drones, seafloor maps, one-click access to archives. Power and fragility side by side. Atlantis sits between them like a mirror and asks, what do we trust? What do we share? What do we click? Which tone pulls us toward truth, and which one just sells excitement? So how do you tell it right? With balance. Keep curiosity alive, but keep your feet on evidence. Honor imagination, but protect your viewer from confusion. Curiosity without method becomes noise. Method without curiosity drains the soul. Holding both is the job. Make a simple promise to your audience: I won't waste your time. No cheap shock. I'll give each claim its strongest case and say clearly where it falls short. I'll keep what's solid and set aside what's wishful. Then 3 clear steps. 1. Go back to the text. Atlantis lives in Timaeus and Critias. It's not a precise calendar, it's DeepTime. The engine is this arc, measure, drift, judgment. Keep that frame in your pocket and weigh every claim against it. Point 2. Weigh places and disasters fairly. Thera, Santorini massive eruption and tsunamis explain a dramatic collapse, but location and timing don't fully match the text. Doñana Delta and Tartessos, Western Plain, canals, metals align well, a ringed capital and tight dates are missing. Azores and Canaries, great vibe, weak evidence of a developed city from the right era. EyeOfTheSahara, stunning rings from space, but geologic, far from. The sea, no city traces. BlackSea flood and Doggerland, real drowned worlds, not Plato's stage. The goal isn't to pick a winner. It's to show what each explains and where it stumbles. Do that honestly and curiosity doesn't die. It clears up. Point 3, turn the mirror. Atlantis is about us, keeping measure when wealth grows, staying firm when power softens us, sharing knowledge instead of locking it away. Myths don't have to be maps to tell human truths. A story can be metaphorical on the map and still be true about the heart. You can hold both. If you're making a long video, carry it with 5 beats: hook, source, candidates, mirror, invitation, quickly, a sensory hook and a forward question, the crisp source recap that places the dialogues, a fair pros and cons table for each candidate, a short read on how different eras reskinned Atlantis, and a closing invite on what real evidence would actually look like. A few ethical rules amplify trust. Put sources on screen, label maps and reconstructions clearly, say when an image is an illustration or AI render. Don't mock believers or shame skeptics. Set the tone you want in the comments. Keep the rhythm breathable. Drop one-line recaps between ideas. Tie a technical detail to a feeling, ground a big feeling with a small detail. That keeps viewers with you without fatigue. Add small participation cues. At the top, ask what evidence would move you from maybe to likely. Mid-video, a vote for the most convincing candidate and one reason. At the end, a 1-minute museum label for a 2040 real Atlantis exhibit. It turns passive watching into shared inquiry. Last word. Even if there's never a red pin on the map, Atlantis is worth telling. It warns against hubris, reminds us power needs tending, shows how fragile knowledge is if we don't protect and share it, and proves humans have always dreamed big. The enemy isn't imagination, it's dishonesty. The cure is a careful story. Thanks for watching. If this helped you see the story more clearly, like, subscribe, and drop one sentence in the comments. The evidence that would move me from maybe to likely is